Nigel Farage is very much enjoying himself, having had incredible election results last week in the local elections and also in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, where the Reform Party overturned the Labour majority of over 15,000, which is pretty alarming. The other thing about that result is the lack of opposition from the left. If you see the Greens as that's 2,000, they're not really anywhere near Labour. The Workers' Party had a very disappointing result there. If you look at these council election results as well, Reform is really picking up council seats all over the North and the Midlands, and also in the West Country. I wasn't aware of that, and also we see in Kent. And the latest opinion poll shows Reform at 32%, 10% ahead of Labour. The Greens are at 9%, under the, there's the left. It is nowhere to be seen in these opinion polls. So I asked people in a survey, do you think the Reform Party could win or hold the balance of power in the next general election? 69% said yes. Only 12% say no. So there is a massive fear of Reform holding the balance of power or even winning the next general election. And it's from this question here, 66% believe that the country has become more xenophobic. It seems that the propaganda from Reform is bearing fruit for them. Then this question here, do you think Reform voters are all racist? Here, 27% say yes, 58% say no. So we don't seem to all think they're racist. Do you think it is possible to stop Reform without voting Labour? This is a really horrible kind of dilemma. Would you have to vote Labour to stop Reform? 60% of us think that it's not necessary to vote Labour to stop Reform. So that's the context of the discussion that we're just about to have with a number of people. But the person I am really pleased to have on the call, who I've asked to speak first on this, is Ken Loach.
Right, very good.
Now, thank you for coming on, Ken. I mean, you've probably seen the rise of the right quite a few times in your life. What do you think the best way to stop Reform is? Do you think it's possible to do this? Are you concerned about Reform?
Well, clearly, I think we must still be concerned by the rise of the far right. I mean, it's across Europe. It's across the world now. We see it in Latin America as well as Europe, as well clearly as in the States. Eastern Europe too. So it's a world phenomenon, and I think it's a huge challenge. I was going to make a few points about, first of all, what we need, what we have to present, and then a suggested process for doing it. I mean, it's just a beginning. I mean, send your suggestions, but I think to begin with, there is no credible left presence at the moment in the public discourse, and we have been consciously excluded by the mainstream media, again led by the BBC and the broadcasters, and it's as though we don't exist. And I think that our first requirement is that we have to establish a strong presence. There has to be a strong presence. There has to be a voice, and we have the numbers, we have the talent, we have the contribution to make, and more than a contribution. So I think that's central. And of course, this happens because the ruling class is insecure. It knows its system is crumbling, and so the left has to be excluded. And given a choice, as they did in the 1930s, the ruling class will choose fascism. The British helped Franco get into Spain, and then joined the war against Europe, which, as John rightly said, the Russians lost millions, and America came late. No surprise there. So here's some thoughts on that. First of all, we have to have a strong presence. Secondly, we have to be credible. And I mean, the people who speak for us have to have a sense of authority, a status in the community, a status in their profession, and speak with knowledge. That's important. And I think what is related to that is that we're going to have to deal with the right-wing agenda. So we're going to have to be able to speak clearly and not duck questions on issues that we tend not to discuss too much, and that's immigration, for one. We're going to have to face that, and we're going to have to work out how our humanitarian and anti-racist, justifiably anti-racist principles have to marry with the concerns that's been whipped up by the right-wing press and fostered by Farage, and leaves him on the edge of power. Let's be no doubt about that. So
do you have an idea of that? I mean, the migration issue, because what would you suggest if someone if you knock on the door of a Reform voter and they say, what are you saying about migration, all these people coming over here? What sort of line could someone give to them?
Well, it's a serious question. I mean, I think first of all, we've got to say, well, the people who we are duty bound to give sanctuary to are those who face terrible problems and danger, and that we're going to have to manage the rest. And I think I think to go further than that and have an open doors policy tactically would be very difficult at the moment, because it would open us to ridicule. We'd be laughed out of the public debate, and because the propaganda is so intense against immigrants, I think we'd have to be tactical on how we approached it. I mean, that's one issue. Another issue is defence, and again we've got to work out what our defence programme should be. I mean, my sense is that it wouldn't be entirely pacifist, so therefore we've got to answer the question: well, what would it be? And again, that's a tricky one. It requires a lot of thought before we, come out with a populist policy.
I mean, is that a problem that we have? We don't believe that we should have weapons because we shouldn't have wars. I mean, that's how we see things. So we'd be saying to people we should have weapons. It's kind of not what we believe. So it's a hard thing to argue when we don't really believe in them. Doesn't it come across as fake if we say something like that?
Well, I think again, I mean, we have no chance of power if we say that. Let's be clear. I mean, if we're interested in having a serious intervention, there's the question: do we want to be a voice of conscience with 2 or 3 MPs based on their past loyalties, brilliant friends, people we all admire, people we stand by? A few will get in on the basis of their long-term service and commitment and friends and great record. The rest of us will be on the edge. So I mean, if we're content with going for a maximum program from day one, then that's our position, and we've got to be realistic about that. If we want to seriously intervene to stop reform, we can't go immediately for a maximum program.
So we have to sort of see what our ideal is, but then our practical policies are not the same as our ideals. Our ideals are no wars.
Yes. I think it's a process, and I was going to try and have something to say about that. I think it's a process.
Sorry, you go ahead. Sorry, go on.
No, you're right to ask. So I think we can deal with tough questions that we don't necessarily want to deal with. I mean, we're brilliant on the public services and on clearly what is wrong. A question that will arise from that, the great ideas, where's the money coming from? And that again takes us to a point I was going to mention in a second, that how we deal with that. Because again, that called in question, what is the economy we want to work for? What kind of economy? And I mean, again, John put it very clearly in his opening, the opening comments he made. It's a socialist economy, but again, it's a process. If we seriously want to intervene against reform, so I think that I think what is on our side is that this is a time for people are open to radical ideas. I mean, again, reform shows us that. You know, it's not the answers to the question, which of the existing parties do you want, was none of the above for many people. The Greens didn't have taken off in some areas. They've done well. But you feel there's a limit how far they will go. Reform is galloping ahead. It's been encouraged for decades, well, forever, really, by the right-wing press. You know, I mean, remember the Mail who said hooray for the black shirts in 1933? You know, the press has always been, the populist press has been extremely right-wing, so they prepare the ground all the time. And so we're fighting that. And it's that consciousness that we have to intervene with. So here's a couple of thoughts on what the process might be. I mean, I think, first of all, let's begin with a wide movement. All the campaigns, all the great Palestinian demonstrations, which is a very, I mean, it's a terrible issue, but it's very clear for us. It's very clear. So there are hundreds of thousands of people who are with us on that. And a clear statement on that would be hugely popular. Well, it's important, never mind popularity. I mean, I don't say that cynically, I say it because we can grab, there are many, many who will stand with us on that. So all the campaigns, all those disaffected from Labour, all those who go to reform reluctantly are there, and they're ready for radical ideas. And those who can't stand Starmer, and there's many, many of those. So we begin with a big movement. And in that time, then we argue out what a party would be like. And I think for the party, we'd need a set of principles. And those should be, everyone should, if they want to be a member of the party, should sign up for that. I mean, the international ones, I think, are very clear, based on the universality of human rights, based on international law, based on the protection of the environment, to prevent the climate disaster. All those are very, I think, they pass on the nod, no question. I think also we have to come back to what is a socialist economy. And I think a way that this could be part of our central principles could be to consider again the old clause 4 of the Labour Party, which is in my original party card, have it here.
Right.
And I mean, just to remind everybody, I'll read it because I think, I mean, the Labour leadership never had any intention of carrying it out, but it's very clear, and it was to secure for the workers by hand or by brain the full fruits of their industry and the most equitable distribution thereof that may be possible upon the basis of the common ownership of the means of production, distribution and exchange. And it goes on about democratic control. And I think that is the heart of a socialist economy, because there is no space for profit. If you receive the full fruits of your work, either in direct wage or in social services and utilities that we need, then there's no space for profit. And I think that leads us to and again, this is very strong ground for us, I think. We can challenge the contradiction at the heart of the Labour Party. And it has been there, and this is why they always betray. Because they say, the answer to the question is, how are you going to pay for these services, the welfare state or whatever it is? They say, well, we'll tax the wealthy. They said no. I mean, Mandelson said famously, we don't care about you being stinking rich, as long as you pay your taxes. Then if you remember that. Well, if you base your economy on that, it means you have to allow the rich to be rich. And that means, we know they make their profits. They make their profits by exploiting workers. So you have to support a system which exploits labour. So those who are there to represent labour depend on the exploitation of labour. And this is a contradiction at the heart of social democracy. We've never really gone for it. And I think that is their weakness. And that is why Starmer shows off to the industrial bosses by saying, by cutting the fuel allowance to the two-child family limit and all the rest. Cut the benefits. It's showing off, saying, look, we're with you. And Blair's famous slogan, Labour means business. We thought he meant rolling his sleeves up. He didn't mean that at all. It meant he means big business. And so I think that's, so our principle could be either that wording or rewording or whatever. But those essential, that is the essence to me of a socialist economy. So I mean, obviously go on for too long, but that's their principles. We have to have a program, and a program would draw from the principles, but it would be tactically astute. It would advance us. It would be consistent with the principles and just move us forward. And I think on all fronts. But I think we've got to be careful. We don't think that a program is principles. It isn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's the kind of thing that people get caught up in. Now, look, Ken, you've been great talking at length on this stuff. I really appreciate you coming on. I've got other people to speak.
Yeah, sure.
So thank you again for speaking, and you're looking well.
Well, surviving just about.
All right, we'll speak to you soon.
Yes, thanks a lot, Crispin. I mean, there's a lot we can say about it, about a new leadership and a new generation of leaders as well. But it's I've said more than enough. Thanks, anyway.
I'm going to move on to Alan Gibbons, who's been doing fantastic work in Liverpool. I think he's got a party going on in the background, so I don't know how much he can concentrate on what's been said here. How are you doing, Alan? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Believe it or not, I'm at the Jolly Tots farm in Lancashire with my grandson's birthday, so just dipping out to do this little call.
All right. Well, look, thanks for doing that. Look, I'm like Ken was saying some good stuff there about how would you talk to someone on this, saying, oh, we don't like all these migrants. I mean, what policy can you say we've got that isn't going to look like it's fobbing them off or something?
I think we've got to establish the context of the benefits that migration has brought. And we can't be shouting at people. We've got to have a serious conversation. I'm in a ward that's 95% white, and discussions over it come up every single day. The first thing that we have to do is to demonstrate that migration by visa is a different thing to asylum. The racists always conflate the two. So I talk about, the contribution, the need for the skills, and then I go on to discuss with the residents asylum. So there's a Serco asylum seekers house 6 doors from my house, and it caused a bit of a flurry at first. And I got 20 residents who were quite upset over it into my living room. It was a bit packed, and systematically went through their concerns and you kind of salami slice the different levels, the ones that are clearly in some way motivated by racist attitudes, and you divide them up with the people who are more bothered about 5 young men in an HMO, a house of multiple occupation. But you've got to be patient and you've got to be systematic, and you've got to talk about the experiences of the 5 young lads, show that they are coming from situations of war, dislocation, hunger, and say there but for fortune go you or go I. And if you put in that systematic work, this is why it's so vital that we have good representation in local government. You have a real impact. And that's what, I mean, I've got 77% of the vote in my ward. There's no sign of Labour coming back. I think the second highest vote in my ward, and I don't believe it'll be high, will be Reform the next time round. Labour's finished in my ward.
Do you think that Reform has got big in a way because they've got those media channels that churn out all their stuff, but also because we don't have enough grassroots activists who go out and talk to people, so they're only here. People are just hearing it from the airwaves, all this stuff that's coming in, whereas you're suggesting in a way that you've been able to get in between the propaganda and them by saying this is what's actually happening. Isn't that really the key to it, that we have more people on the ground talking to people face to face?
You've got to demonstrate, make a material difference. I mean, you work at 2 levels. So obviously I'm very political. I walk around wearing the keffiyeh. We lead on campaigns. You know, we've twice brought Palestine to the city council, and national campaigns. You know, we did a campaign over disability payments. We did a campaign over Marie Curie and the need to keep an inpatient ward open. And each time we've had lobbies outside the council that engage people, that bring people in from the community. Marie Curie, Lucy Williams, one of our councillors, actually organised a lobby of a lobby of Marie Curie that had 450 people at 3 days' notice. You've got to have roots to be able to do that. Some sections of the left for years have been satisfied with national events and standing in city centres with a newspaper planted against the chest. That's not good enough. You've got to be on the doorstep. I've been 4 times around my ward, knocking on doors, talking to people about their concerns. And there's even the littlest things as material differences. I think it's the only ward so far in our area, Liverpool, I've actually got all the yellow stripes on the road repainted. Dangerous crossing, I'm pressing for safety measures, including repainting them, hopefully to get Pelican Crossing. You combine that with your general national political work, but they've got to know that you as a councillor are available for every single little issue, and you're going to campaign for them. You won't win everything, but you are part of that community. And I believe as many councillors as possible have to be living in their community. Too many Labour councillors have traditionally been parachuted in. They float around looking for a safe seat. No, you fight where you are. You stand up. You're a tribune for your community.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds quite obvious to me that a lot of the left think we can use the tactics or the resources of the right in sort of building a national party and promoting it. But we have to be doing it a different way because we can't do it that way. We have to have it from the ground because we don't have the funding to pump out propaganda on national media. So we have to be there doing the day-to-day and exactly what you said.
They've got the media. I don't think people have understood the traction that GB News has got. GB News pops up on your Twitter feed more than the Daily Mirror. And people in my ward are watching GB News, and you have to knock down their myths. Give you an example. One that came up recently was that they put out a programme that said the NHS is demanding that non-Muslims observe Ramadan fasting. Now, I looked it up and it actually says precisely the opposite. It says non-Muslims are not required to fast during Ramadan, people in the NHS. So I just went around telling people, no, you're falling for bullmuck here. Don't be conned. And I said, just think about it. Does this look likely? We respect Ramadan, but they're not asking non-Muslims to fast. It's nonsense. And the moment you say it robustly, the penny drops. But every time I go into a residence, 75% of the TV news that's on when I go into a residence house is GB News. And I don't think people have realised quite the traction that and Talk TV have got when they immediately get a really good Twitter following and Twitter responses to me. I draw in on the myths that they generate daily. And like I say, we don't have that sort of national media. We had an attempt back in the 70s to try and set up a left-wing newspaper, but we haven't got hedge fund managers backing us. We just don't.
Yeah. Well, look, it's great what you're saying. I think it makes it clearer what we've got to do. In fact, it's not that complicated. It just means we've got to get out there and do the work.
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah.
A few people on the thread have been sort of saying what we need to do is have a politics where you bring together a coalition of independent and community groups. Now, yes, we do. And the vast majority, I think, of the work has to be from ground up, from below. But unless you have a national branding that's recognisable, unless you have democratic structures, policy-making conferences, then you won't get anywhere in this country. Britain has got a very centralised state. We have got to have an organisation that pulls together the local initiative, is built by working class people on the ground, but also has that national coordination. If we don't have that, we can't take on reform. When we stood Sam Ghost, reform beat us because the Greens split the vote. We'd have won if the Greens hadn't split the vote, but reform did no work in the community. We'd been working in the community in Garston for years. But when it came to the broader constituency, the first question people ask is, who do I vote for nationally? Reform had a brand. The Greens had a brand. And we were just local independent socialists. You've got to have that national branding. Without it, and that's why yesterday in Huddersfield, myself, Salma Yaqub and Claudia Webb called for a national political party organised immediately. Jeremy talked about an alternative established by the time of the 2026 elections and probably before. This is what he said. I think we're on the brink of a national organisation, a national party of the left. We've got to make it happen.
Right. Okay. Well, we might hear more about that. Thank you. I'm sure we will. I'm just going to talk about this issue of unity because I think this is important. If we look at this poll here, this is a survey I put out. Do you think it's possible to unite the left? Half of those responding said yes. We haven't got a good reputation for unity. There's a lot of bickering goes on the left. I just wanted to show this. This is these are the parties as well. This is if you choose an alternative party to Labour, Conservative or Reform, which would it be? And look at, we're all over the place. Look, we've got none of the above. Lib Dems, even Greens, 32%. The Greens are the largest group that people have chosen on this survey. Local independents, 19%. There's other parties I didn't include there, 16%. Tusk, 8%. Workers' Party, 9%. Plaid Cymru, 1%. Yeah, it's all we're kind of all over the place with what party to support. And in that vein, I went to London yesterday. I was really ill actually on Friday. I didn't think I could make it, but I managed to get out because it was sunny, I think. And I went to the Green conference, and I also went to a Workers' Party conference rally for the 80th anniversary of VE-DEC. I've come off my sickbed to come out to the Green Party conference here in London in Birkbeck College. We're going to find out what the Green Party members think about what's going on, how we can stop reform, how we can maybe unite the left, how we can defeat Labour and reform. I want to find out also if they'll be up for uniting the left, what they think about that. So I've got some people that I'm going to speak to, and there's a lot of depression around what happened in Runcorn, the reform getting an MP. What do you think is the best way to stop reform?
I think it's quite an easy question to answer. The way to stop reform would be for Labour, the party of government, to deliver. We've got the sharpest decline in living standards in generations. Like, rents are going up, prices are going up, wages are going down. And that is absolutely the fault of Labour. And instead of addressing those things, they're trying to appease the far right by aping their policies and punching down and going after migrants. And that absolutely doesn't work. And what the Green Party can do, needs to do, is doing, and is increasingly doing, is to articulate an alternate vision, a vision that puts people and planet before profit, and make sure that we're cutting through so that people know, yeah, Labour and the Tories, they presided over 15 or 40 years of austerity and declining living standards, but something better is possible, and it's absolutely not what Farage is offering.
I wasn't surprised by those results, and I'm not surprised by the rise of reform because, one, Labour is rubbish, and when you look at the breakdown of reform voters, they are disproportionately people that say that they can't make ends meet, and they're working class. We don't even talk about class anymore. And my experience running as an independent was that some of those reform voters actually haven't bought into all of the anti-immigration narrative. What they are angry about, and fair enough, is that the system, the political system as is, and the two main parties do not work for them. They lie, and they are dishonest about what they will do in government.
How did I feel about reform? So I was doing the media round as the results were coming in and going on various TV shows and radio shows. And one of them, just before me, the elected new mayor of Lincoln, Andrea Gilbert, former Tory MP, yes, quite boo, was talking about putting asylum seekers, people seeking asylum, into tents. And Lewis Goodall, the host, said, does that include children? And she said, oh, there's not that many children who are seeking asylum, as if that made it okay. And I just had this moment where whenever you're on media and TV, you kind of want to be projecting hope, you want to be projecting positivity. But actually what I really felt was just a deep sense of anger at my pit of my stomach. And I think it's important that we name that. I think it's important that we don't give into that and just entirely be driven by the anger. But I think it's feeling that anger, recognising it, and then channeling it into hope, into future and positivity.
The thing is that we've also got a failure of the left to unite. I mean, since Jeremy Corbyn, there's been all these different parties have been set up, and the Greens as well. How do you think the left can be united? Some people say that's impossible, that there's always bickering going on. How do you think you can get everyone to join up?
I think this has been the biggest challenge of the left. Whenever we've tried to build a social movement, there's been splinters of the left that tear the left apart. And I hear this talk about a new party, a party around Jeremy Corbyn, around sort of that broad coalition of those left people, Andrew Feinstein, for example. And I think, why are we trying to build a new party and create something new when we already have the infrastructure, we already have the right party that's there, that we can just rally behind and form a broad church of a coalition of people on the left.
Some people on the left question the Green Party for not being socialist or not having a class basis, or issues around NATO or the IHRA definition. I can just remember a few of these things. What do you say to those people who have these criticisms of some Green Party policies or possible principles that they've been holding for some years?
Help us change it. You mentioned a few things there. Now, we have the ability to direct policy. Last year at conference, we pushed a motion through recognising what's happening in Palestine as a genocide and calling it as such, and recommitting our Green Party to BDS. Now, if there's something that people aren't liking, because of the democratic process within the Green Party, we've got the ability. There's plenty of us who don't like the IHRA definition. There's plenty of us that don't like NATO. So help us come in, give us the numbers, give us the support, and help us rewrite that policy.
I think there's a couple of things that we need to do better as the left generally. I think the main thing from my perspective is the language that we use. It's talking about issues that voters care about in the language that they really care about. I'm from Basildon. That's one of the Reform constituencies. Speaking to people on the doorstep around town, it's like they don't really like the language that we used, where it comes out as out of touch, middle class or university educated. It doesn't really resonate. I think that the Green Party has the potential to break free of that kind of curse of the left that I think we've had for a couple of decades, really. But we have to have bold leadership. And I think that we have a lot of people in the party, especially who've joined over the last year or two, who really get behind that message. And I think we just need more people in the party backing that sort of agenda, who know how to speak to working class people and who aren't in this sort of echo chamber, I guess.
Some of the issues that people criticise the Greens on are like NATO support, the IHRA definition, and that some people say it doesn't have a class basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I agree with you on all of those issues. I think that fundamentally we need a working class party, and at the moment, whether like that's a party or an organisation, I don't really mind. But at the moment, only the Green Party has the potential to be that. We've been waiting for a new party for a long, long time, and I think it's really important to have these debates within the organisation, get it to change its stance. We can get these policies changed. There's a lot of support in the Green Party for like an actual definition of anti-Semitism that doesn't defend Zionism, which is a deeply racist ideology. And yeah, I think the best way to change that is within the party.
I met with Gary Stevenson, interesting man. He talks a million miles a minute. I thought I'd talk quick. And one of the things he said to me was, we were talking a lot about the Green Party social media accounts, which are still important. And he was like, stop focusing on those. He said, people want to hear you speak. And when I say that to me, I'm saying it to you guys too. If you're a target candidate, if you're someone doing something in your community, pick up your phone, get on social media. If you're not confident about doing it yet, talk to someone in your local party or someone you know who goes, okay, here's some tips. Because what I don't want people to do is rush off and get themselves in trouble on social media just ranting. But I think there's a really happy medium where if you've got something to say, it aligns with our values, get someone to film you and get saying it. Because I think the age of politicians from top down is kind of over or moving away.
What do you think about the unity on the left, though? I mean, there's a problem on the left. Would the Greens work with other parties like the Workers' Party or Tusk or others? Would they stand down candidates? That became an issue in the general election with in Ilford, obviously. Wes Streeting, everyone says Wes Streeting would have been defeated if the Greens hadn't stood a candidate. What do you think about this issue of not standing candidates against each other if they're both on similar platforms?
So first of all, I'd say that the Green Party's platform is not similar to the Workers' Party platform, and whilst until George Galloway addresses his hostile views towards the LGBT community, then I don't think he's a political ally of mine. But on the broader question of working with socialist independents, left independent candidates, you mentioned Tusk, not that they've done particularly well in elections, but take the point. I'm happy that conversations are happening, particularly on a local level. People need to talk to each other, see where there's alignment. But ultimately, the Green Party's a national party running candidates everywhere with 2 million votes, activists all over the place, and a brilliant policy platform. So I think people need to take that seriously.
We've just been in the Green conference, and now we're going to go and see the Workers' Party conference, just round the corner. It's not very far, it's probably about 10 minutes walk, so we'll find out what they say about the Greens and what they think about unity.
And Keir Starmer, his links with total imperialism now rewards Modi's fascist regime as it escalates attacks on Pakistan. Trade deals drenched in Kashmiri and Pakistani blood. Starmer's Labour complicit in Hindu supremacist butchering, selling out workers for a seat at the oligarchs' table.
We're outside Bolivar Hall, where the Workers' Party have had a conference celebrating the 80 years since the victory over the Nazis, including ambassadors from Russia and China and other countries that have been kind of cold-shouldered by the West in their celebrations of the 80 years since the war and victory in Europe.
I'll say, well, if you're an environmentalist, how can you advocate for the war that's going on in Ukraine and all the toxic waste that's coming out of there and the pollution that's produced from that war, yet you will stand by, and legitimately by, the Palestinians, and you march and disrupt everything there, which is great, but are anti-Russian. We've just been to a meeting now where we heard that 27 million people, Russian people, fought and died for our liberty. We lost thousands, hundreds of thousands, and God bless them. My uncle, my granddad, what have you, were all in the wars. You can't pick and choose your wars. You've got to come together, because it's us, the working class, that actually will make a difference to this, not only this country, but to the world. We're all working class, regardless if you're in Russia, China, Venezuela, or the UK. At the end of the day, we get the brunt of the problems. And in this country, which is like the 5th or 6th richest country in the world, why in God's name aren't the working class all coming together? All coming together and telling these bunch of idiots who are making millions and billions off the backs of us, and we are dying. Record numbers of people are dying in this country because of poverty, because of poor quality housing, and because of ignorance and incompetence. And we've had that since I was alive. I've got no beef with the Greens, literally, right? The people, the foot soldiers of the Greens. I just think they're being led by establishment. I'll just say it, all right?
We've just been at the Green Party little London conference to hear what they've got to say about how we unite the left and also how we can defeat reform. They think that they're moving more to the left, that they can change the Greens to be a more socialist party. Why would you not think that that was the way forward?
First of all, I think they need to sort of check their sort of moral compass on their position on NATO. Just because you believe in peace and harmony when it comes to the ozone layer and things, that doesn't make you a peace-loving political party. We've just had a fantastic gathering here today to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Europe's victory. And I think what's come across very clearly is that those people that feel that they are some kind of leaders when it comes to peace and justice and harmony. In fact, we are the only true party that is doing that. The Workers' Party is a left party. It believes in true socialism. And the Greens and the Tories and Labour and the rest of them, the Tories and Labour don't even pretend to be so anymore. I think Greens are still trying to hold on to that sort of political rhetoric.
You've just mentioned that the Greens would like, some people in the Greens are saying they can turn their party into a socialist party standing for working people. I'd wish them, those people that want to see that, I would wish them good luck with it. I think they'll need it probably. But there are a lot of good people in the Green Party, and where I live in South London, very near to me, I was very pleased that there was a by-election in Lambeth Council recently, in Loughborough Junction ward, and it was great to see the Green Party candidate who stood on a left-wing platform win and defeat Starmer's Labour Party. We're in a position of a slow recomposition of working class politics in this country, and what final form that will take, I don't think anyone can tell at the moment, but it will involve all sorts of apparently disparate forces coming together, and there'll be processes of splits and realignments. Unfortunately, there still seem to be more splits than realignments, and I hope people can find a way to get through that. And I'm sure there are many people in the Green Party who will play a positive role in that process. What's very important is to hammer out some kind of common minimum programme, and people need to leave some of their old disputes and disagreements at the door, not to give up their individual points of view, but to realise that the trouble with wanting a realignment of the left around everything that you agree with is that everybody else wants the same thing too. And there has to be some kind of element of cooperation and goodwill. And I don't think you have to agree with all the policies of the Workers' Party to see that it's, as left-wing forces in this country go, it's a serious political force. It's scored some achievements which other parties and organisations to the left of Labour haven't succeeded in doing, and I think that the Workers' Party and the left-wing forces in the Green Party both have a role to play in rebuilding the left, but people have to be prepared to talk to each other, not necessarily to agree, but to agree on the things that they can agree on. All of us want desperately to see an end to the genocide against the Palestinian people. We want to reverse the attacks that the Starmer government is making on working people. I think we have to focus on some of those issues.
Well, I'm joined by Chris Williamson. Thank you for coming on the call, Chris.
Thanks, Crispin. Good to be here.
There's a lot of issues raised there. Now, yeah, I mean, the Greens and the Workers' Party, at the end, he was saying you've got to drop some of your stuff, your baggage, and just get onto what you agree with on stuff. But there's a lot of attacks on the Workers' Party recently for some of the slogans. Like one of the elections was saying, "Stop the boats, stop the wars." And this guy said before that he can't be in anything to do with the Workers' Party because of the policy on LGBT. What would you say about those two particular issues?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that, I mean, as Ken Loach was saying in his conversation with you earlier, Crispin, that we have to grasp this nettle of immigration. And I think the Workers' Party have tried to come forward with a common sense socialist proposition in relation to immigration, because irrespective of what our view might be, there is a lot of concern. Much of it, some of it is justifiable. But what we're saying is, look, let's deal with the reason why desperate people get in boats to seek refuge in a foreign country in the first place. And the British establishment, the British war machine, is largely culpable for that. So what we're saying is, if you want to stop the boats, stop the wars, stop the arms sales, and stop the sanctions which are targeted at populations to deliberately impoverish them, actually creating that desperation in the first place. And what I always say to people on the doorstep, and used to say this when I was in the Labour Party as well, when I come across somebody who would complain about asylum seekers, is to say, look, mate, you've got more in common with the asylum seekers that you're complaining about than you have with the people at the top of society, because it's the people at the top of society, in the war machine, in the military industrial complex, in these corporate capitalist organizations, which are exploiting people in this country, leading to 14.5 million people living in poverty in Britain, the 6th biggest economy in the world, are the self-same people that are responsible for the wars, the arms sales, and the sanctions that are creating the desperation in those countries, which lead people to come in the first place.
I'm just confused about the Green and Workers' Party thing. It seems like there's no way of the two getting on, but they are one of the two largest, probably the two largest parties of what we call the left. Some in the Workers' Party would say the Greens aren't left. I don't even want to go into that because that'd just be a big fight. And then I think some in the Greens would say the Workers' Party aren't on the left. I mean, that's the other thing. That's a real gulf there. But then I have to address the result in Runcorn, which was really disappointing, because I did speak to Peter Ford before it, and I wanted to promote his campaign, as I think we should do, before everyone who stands against Starmer. We should all promote them, whatever our party on the left, I believe, anyway. But he didn't do particularly well. Do you think, are there any reasons why you think that was?
It was a very poor result. We have to be honest about that. I mean, it wasn't the sort of constituency necessarily where the Workers' Party has done well in the past. It's the constituency, though, where I would like to think the Workers' Party could do well in the future. Look, we're still a small acorn. We didn't have sufficient volunteers on the ground. There was a blackout of the Workers' Party candidate, Peter Ford. He was excluded, as we were excluded on a national basis as well. I'm not saying that, had we got more coverage in the mainstream media, that we would have stormed to a incredible victory, but we may have got a few more votes there. We need to build the party. We need more activists on the ground, and we need to we need to stop this sniping, it seems to me, which is very, very unhelpful. And I think one of the things, for me, I think, Crispin, what we on the left need to be focused on now is on class politics, is on economic inequality, and park the kind of identity politics and the culture wars, because that turns people off, and you're not going to win the sort of mass support if you are constantly, exercised about LGBT rights. I mean, people going about George. I mean, George was given a Stonewall Award for his work in Parliament in standing up for gay rights. But look, George is the leader of the party. He's a big figure, of course he is. But George isn't the party. The party is made up of thousands of individuals. And so that, for me, Crispin, is we've got to focus on the economy. We've got to focus on economic inequality, in my opinion. And I mean, Ken was talking about, answering the difficult question about how do we pay for it? Well, there's a very simple way how we pay for it, because we are a currency issuing nation. We have that flexibility, and we're not subject to the gold standard as we used to be. We're no longer linked to the dollar as we used to be under the Bretton Woods Agreement after the Second World War, which was ditched by Richard Nixon in 1971. And so I think we've got a very clear way of explaining, how we could afford to create a good society. And as Tony Benn used to say, if we can find the money to kill people, we can find the money to help people. And the other thing I'd say, Crispin, as well, is we need to be not overly panicked by reform. Yes, of course, that they're on an upward trajectory, but still the vast majority of people didn't vote in the last election, and certainly in these local elections. So there's a lot of people out there who are just pissed off with all politicians. So we need to be focusing on them and giving people, it seems to me, a reason to vote, but also not to write off the reform voters. Just as Jeremy said when he stood for the leadership in 2015 of the Labour Party, to not write off the UKIP voters. He's saying that many of them voted UKIP out of desperation. People are voting for reform out of desperation, often because they don't realise there are these alternatives. They don't know about the Workers' Party. But let's expose reform on immigration, because they claim, that's their main raison d'etre about immigration. But they support the imperialist wars. They support the sanctions. They support the arms sales. They support the circumstances which actually create the immigration which they are complaining about. Let's expose them on the National Health Service. They've said they've been on record in the past as supporting an insurance-based health system similar to the United States. And let's expose them on the economy as well, Crispin. They had a ridiculous bill before Parliament. What was it called? The quantitative easing prohibition bill, I think it was called. Basically, they wanted to stop the government having the ability to create money and to go back onto the gold standard. I mean, it's absurd. When Britain was on the gold standard back in the 1930s, I mean, it still had a supply of gold from South Africa, because South Africa still fell within the orbit of the British Empire. It's an absolutely ludicrous proposition. So they are a bunch of phonies. They're led by merchant bankers and property developers, multimillionaires, masquerading as champions of the working class when they are actually pillars of the establishment. So I think we do that. We focus on the economy. We part the kind of obsession with identity politics and take a leaf out of Fred Hampton's book. Remember what Fred Hampton said. He said, you don't fight fire with fire, you fight fire with water. You don't fight racism with black racism, you fight it with solidarity. And you don't fight capitalism with black capitalism, you fight it with socialism. And that's the sort of thing I think that we need to be holding dear to our heart. Fred Hampton, the famous Black Panther who was assassinated by the US state when he was the tender age, I think, of just 21 years. But that's a sort of approach that we need. And, look at what they've achieved in France, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, where they brought the left together. Look, there's plenty of things in the Green Party that I would agree with. I'm sure there's plenty of things that people who are in the Green Party would agree with where the Workers' Party is at. But if we're serious about challenging the rise of reform, if we're serious about, building a common sense socialist alternative, then we've got to make a few of these compromises and start collaborating and working together, it seems to me. And unless we do that, we are finished. But don't rule out, in conclusion, Crispin, don't rule out the role of the state in actually dividing the left, because it's in their interest, isn't it, to smash the left through divide and rule tactics. And, you know, I've often said the British Empire was the most successful empire in the world because it was past masters at divide and rule, and they're using those same tactics on us. Don't fall for it.
That's right. That's right. You can't help thinking, look how Starmer's got in so easily. It's just that it's all done from some deep state thing. We're talking to other people about. I mean, anyway, I don't want to go into that. That's another story, but definitely worth thinking about. Thank you, Chris. Audrey, what do you make of what you've heard so far? Because I mean, what I've got is that, you know, if we actually do community campaigning, we can make a difference and stop reform taking a hold, because they just depend on the airwaves.
Yeah.
As far as uniting the left, there's some hope. I mean, there's some hope it could be done, but also there's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleared up. What do you make of where we are?
Well, you just say, to make of what we are, where we are, you have to say that up until July of last year, there was people still, you know, there still is, but there was masses of people although there was a big hatred of Starmer and distrust of Starmer and all the rest of it, there were still large elements of the working class. I mean, you even had John Rees on here telling people to vote for Starmer. So there was this disillusionment, this exposure to what Starmer would really do, and you know, has proven himself to be up to the mark in terms of not representing the working class, in fact attacking the weakest sections of the working class. So that has only happened over this short period of time, you know, which is not yet 12 months. So you've seen masses and masses. You know, the perspective is what we have to look at. You know, the perspective of, you know, the hope that was built by Jeremy. And then, of course, this whole period of time with Starmer, just waiting in the wings, wait till you see what Starmer was going to do. And of course, now it's all gone. And I think we should really celebrate the demise of the Labour Party. I think we've got to be very clear with working class people, because no matter what we're talking about, you know, all these other organisations, Labour is still a danger, because people will say, as they've done on this programme, let's, you know, will we have to vote Labour to keep reform out? Well, Labour is reform. You know, there's no difference. You know, they're not. They haven't got economic policies that would, you know, reflect Clause 4, which is what Ken was talking about. We've got to be radical. So if we're going to form a party, I absolutely agree with a number of things that have been said. One is the hard work that's required at community level, and then in organising nationally to have the policies and the principles, as Ken said, the principles that are needed. Because what do we coalesce around? What do we coalesce around if we don't coalesce around basic principles? If we have that discussion over principles and put forward a set of principles that we discuss, that we agree on, you know, and make that the national recognition, if you like. If you want to be recognised nationally as part of anything, you are a part of these ideas, and that's what you're campaigning about. You can put that out very, very clearly. That could be put out now from the independents. That could be the skeleton, if you like, of the bill. But when you don't know what the policies are, the principles are, the basic principles, like you wouldn't be saying, oh, taxing the rich is the answer. Taxing the rich isn't the answer. Yes, call for it. They'll never, ever accept being taxed. They will never pay up. They will leave the country. But still, the basic elements of capitalism will still continue to destroy the planet, will still drive people's wages down, and all these things. We have to talk about the principles of what do we mean when we say socialism? What does economic socialism mean? You know, and how do we achieve these things? So unless we're fighting for the ideas, let me just tell you one thing. Right. The only time I've seen a mass movement, or if you like, a mass movement with, you know, political energy moving forward is the 47 in Liverpool, when, and it took years, you know, it took years to build up that campaign. And it was talking to, you know, Alan said a similar thing. It was talking to shop stewards, committees and, you know, groups, women's groups and all the rest of it. Tremendous amount of work from a tremendous amount of people. But even within the 47, there were differences. Like we're all saying now, they're all differences. But what did they unite around? They united around basic principles of jobs, no increases in the council tax, jobs and council houses, and so on, and all achieved through discussion. And that was why the whole of Liverpool, it was an immense movement. You've seen some of the videos. It was not just the videos, it was the mass politicization of our city. It was a political.
I mean, can I just? I know the time's running on a bit, but do you think that that sort of work that was done before militant in Liverpool and stuff has established Liverpool as a socialist kind of city? I mean, obviously there's Labour MPs, but that's going to take a bit more time to shake off because they've still got that. They're still branded a bit as though they're socialist, but.
Yeah.
Is that a legacy of that then?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the fight against the poll tax and all the rest of politicised large sections of the country. So there's elements of working class areas where you see, you know, look at the Birmingham strike now with the bin men and so on. You see, nobody here talking about uniting, you know, what do we do? How do we go forward? Is really talking about it's the cart and the horse. What comes first? You know, how do we unite? We unite just against along the ideas. The only other time, we had very, very clear policies over the 47. The same with the miners' strike, but you know, jobs for the miners, to, you know, the attacks on the miners, the attacks on the working class, right across the country. Absolutely fantastic politicisation, debates and so on. Great leadership on both occasions. The other thing is under Jeremy. And Jeremy went the length and breadth of the country, travelling, speaking to people directly about what he believed in. And what really took the whole movement forward was the manifesto. You know, all right, there was these things that, you know, I would have liked to have gone further. So unless we're doing that, and you know what we have to be? We have to be militant. Nobody wants a second 11 to the Labour Party. We've already had the Labour Party, a second 11 to the Tory Party. We don't want this reformism. We don't want reform, and we certainly don't want reformism. We want radical socialism, radical anti-war policies. And we don't want people who feign to be campaigning to save the planet, not even mentioning war and how destructive war is and so on, and unions fighting for the right to make arms to supply people with genocide. We've got we have to be clear, and we're not clear enough. What are we talking about there? Why aren't we talking about council houses, which means nobody being homeless? Why aren't we talking about war, which means saving the planet, saving thousands of lives, not fighting for the right to trade with so-and-so's working class for somebody's deficit or overproduction and all the bloody rest of it? We've got to recognise that Reform became a party in 2018. And they have the political energy. They're the ones with the political energy at the present time. We don't have a vehicle. Well, I'm going to move. Can I just finish on this? Yeah. We've got a movement, but we haven't got a vehicle, and that vehicle has to be a party, and that party can be built from the grassroots up. But we've also got to have somebody prepared, or a group of people to be prepared. And you know what else we've got to be? We've all got to be our local community leaders. we all become leaders and we will really move forward as a class.
Right, thank you, Audrey. You've done a great job today. Now you can go and have a rest. All right, I've just got it. I'm just going to bring on James Giles, and then then I'll bring on Pamela and Faaiz after that. I wanted to hear James Giles because I'll just bring on James here.
Hi, Crispin.
How you doing, James? Thanks for waiting to come on, and we're running over, and you've been very patient there. Sorry, I just wanted to bring up this issue of a party because there's been it's on a lot of the on the social media today. Is Jeremy Corbyn saying this in, I think it was Huddersfield yesterday. He says, now I hear the call for a new political party. I fully understand that, and that political party needs to be well informed and effective, one that gives our central message of peace, of justice, of equality, of diversity in our society. That means that anyone that we support who's elected to a local authority or to a parliament is going to be accountable to their community. It's going to behave in a democratic way, and above all is pledged to address the grotesque levels of inequality and imbalance that are there within our society. A lot of us are working very hard supporting each other as independents. This whole cause is coming together so that by next year's local elections, long before that, we're going to have something in place that is very clear that everyone will want to be part of and support. It's never hard to find differences of opinion on the left, but look at the reality of people's lives and what the issues are that have to be faced. Hope can be a very powerful development in politics. Reform only offers despair. He's not particularly being, I don't know, quiet about something there. I mean, he sounds to be saying that their party, that he's not against having a party. Do you think there's any likelihood of a party being set up soon?
I mean, look, I think the results from Runcorn and the local elections around the country on the 1st of May, I think focused a lot of people's minds, Crispin. Look, the left has a track record of perhaps spending a little too much time arguing amongst itself rather than taking the fight to the likes of Reform and indeed these days to Starmer's Labour Party. But I think it has focused minds and there is now more than ever an urgent need, as everyone I think on this call today has said in one way, shape or form, for a vehicle. And I think Audrey actually summed a lot of it up perfectly. We have a movement, we have all of the people here on this call that regularly tune in to your show, Crispin. We have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people on social media within our communities that are advocating for a better Britain, for a better world. And indeed, we have now hundreds of independent councillors who have broken through onto their town halls, and 5 independent members of parliament elected at the last general election. The movement has broken through in a way that first past the post really wasn't meant to allow us to break through, and yet we have. And I don't think we're going back into that box anytime soon. And so I think my message is to everyone that would be watching this is, please sit tight. I guess an apology is in order insofar as there are conversations that are intensifying with a lot of credible big names on the left. And I think that when something is announced, and I think Jeremy's right, that it will be long before next May's election, I would certainly hope before the end of the current parliamentary session, so before the summer recess, I think we can expect an announcement of something, and it will be something big. It will be something that I think will tick a lot of people's boxes. It has to be credible, and the names involved will make it so. It has to unite all of those who can be united, is what I would say. and those who want to unite, of course, will be welcome. It has to be unapologetic in our principles, not just what we're against, but most crucially, what we are for, to give people hope again. And it needs primarily, while being based in our communities, to fight elections with an aim of winning elections. So I'm sorry I can't say more at this particular point in time, but I want to reassure everybody that there are conversations ongoing, and it's been a long wait, I concede. People are running out of patience. Some of them view Zack Polanski in the Greens as the answer because there has been a vacuum. I personally don't view Zack Polanski as the answer, and that's probably a conversation for another day, although I can see why some people, having spent very many years waiting, would consider going down that route. But my plea is sit tight, wait, and in the coming weeks, the wait is very nearly over. That much I can say for sure.
Wow. I think you got an exclusive on here. Everyone, I've seen people clapping there. Obviously, Zoom's not the best place to be making a speech and stuff, but thank you, James, for coming on. I appreciate you waiting as well this time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Good ice creams are found, I believe, in Kingston somewhere.
They certainly are. I look forward to it, and I'll tune in till the end of the show to see what others have to say.
All right. Cheers, James. Oh, whoops, I unmuted him, I would say. Right, now, look, I'm going to move on to Pamela Fitzpatrick, who's also been waiting patiently. Faaiz, you're coming on soon. Andrea as well. Are you there, Pamela?
I am. Hi, Crispin. Glad to hear you're feeling a bit better.
Oh, not really. I'm still a bit rough, but what do you think of this statement from Jeremy and what James is saying? There's a possibility of maybe some announcement about a party coming up.
Yeah, there will be. I mean, as you know, I've been working with Collective which seems like an awful long time, to bring all the left groups together to form a credible left party. And I think we are getting near to where there will be an announcement. But it has to be built democratically so that there will be structures where members decide on policy, etc., etc. So that is coming, and there's a necessity. So I'll just go back to where we started with this about reform. How do we stop reform? Right. Because this is linked, obviously, as to the need for a new party. So I kind of agree with some of the things that have been said today, but I do think we need to be careful about not taking the wrong approach to this. So a lot of it is how do we stop reform and the rise of the far right? But actually, we need to understand why people are turning to reform, and similar parties or demagogues across Europe, America, everywhere this is happening. And what's it's doing is, yes, there is a kind of a sea change in the political world, but this is a complete rejection of establishment politics, basically, and people are looking for anti-establishment parties. And it would be wrong to assume that the reason people are turning to them is because they're racist. All of these kind of right-wing parties, the demagogues, the anti-establishment parties, that's what they're going on. They've almost all had anti-austerity policies because they know that's what they need to get any support, rather than the kind of racism being the thing at the forefront. And if we don't recognise that, we're going to also make the same mistakes of the past. So we need to focus on that. And whilst I agree, yes, we need to be in the communities and talking, as some of you will know, my day job, I work in a law centre, and I've done a similar job for the past, I don't know how many decades. And I specialised within those roles on the two things that, you know, the national media hate most, which is the rights of asylum seekers and migrants and welfare benefits. And so I take my knowledge of those things into the community and where I'm talking. And you can write as much as you like about those issues to inform people of what's right. You can talk to people as much as you can about putting people right about what the real situation is about migration, about welfare benefits. But that's not going to change anything unless you make people's lives better. And that's why people are turning to these anti-establishment parties, because it's not just since the Tories, we've had decades of austerity. It's been going that way since the 80s. And so we now have a situation where housing is the most dominant thing in most people's lives, because most people can't afford to buy anywhere now. Most people can't afford to rent. They're spending 60% of their income on rent. Benefit systems collapsed. All services have collapsed. You're having to pay for more and more within the health service. That's collapsing. And the only narrative you get is that the reason for this is greedy benefit claimants and migrants who are coming to do us harm. So yes, you can say, well, you're wrong about the migrants. They're not the ones taking the housing. That's fine. But you're not going to deal with the anger of people who can't survive. They don't have the bare necessities of life at the moment. So many people in Harrow, everybody thinks Harrow's wealthy. I think it's 23% of the working population are paid below the London living wage. And housing in Harrow, we have the lowest amount of social housing anywhere. 5,000 council homes. So poorer people, middle-income people are in really expensive slums, basically. So unless you deal with that, we're going to have the same problems. And Audrey's touched on this. We've been tinkering at the edges for decades, trying to manage capitalism. And that's not going to work anymore. You need radical left policies, and they will be popular. And there is no other party that is offering those. So you need to think about what we need. Like when you're talking about house building, we've got Labour talking about, what they're doing now, how many millions of homes they're building. But nobody can afford to live in these homes. Even the ones that are said to be affordable are not affordable. Imagine if you said we're going to nationalise the construction industry. We're going to have homes built on the basis of the needs of the people rather than the greeds of the investors. That would be so popular. If you think about, we're going to ensure that there is genuine free public health, all of these things would take away the focus on migrants. So what many parties, and in Runcorn this was really bad because everybody was focusing on migrants. You just feed that narrative. There's no point doing that. You have to think about how we're going to address the needs of the people. So yes, there's been a rise of independents, and yes, that's good that Labour are not getting in. But firstly, how do you determine that all these independents are socialist? And even within socialism, there's various kind of arguments about the approach. Some think you should tax the rich. I don't agree with that. Got no problem with rich people paying more tax, but I think it's, as Ken said, you still accept that system of inequality if you have that. So you need to have control of the economy if you're going to actually change things. And that includes nationalised banking, radical policies that will be popular. And so that's how you tackle it. And you can only do that with a national party. Because if you expect individuals locally, and this happens everywhere, Harrow, we can get 400 people in a room. That's great. But unless you have the money to do this, then you're not going to be able to kind of change things. So imagine we've got 23% of the population, working population, earning less than the kind of minimum wage or London living wage. So are we expecting them to fund leaflets, to fund payment for rooms? Are we expecting them to do it all themselves? They can't. We need a national party and a structure and principles and policies that everybody has democratically agreed, but they have to be radical. And otherwise, reform will continue. That's inevitable. Right. And you've seen it in other European countries. You've seen it, America. It's all the anti-establishment. Portugal, I think they just had a survey where people are saying they're all corrupt. So at best, people think politicians are lazy and stupid. And at the other end, they think they're all corrupt. So we can't pretend our policies to get in power either. We have to be radical and be honest.
Well, I really love what you're saying, and we're all excited about a new party, possibly. But I mean, some people are not maybe excited. I'm going to talk to I'm going to talk to a Green member now. So thank you, Pamela, and thank you for staying on the call for so long. I hope you get good ice creams in Harrow. I know you do. I've seen the ice cream vans up there. They're great. Faaiz, who I saw at the Green conference yesterday, but I didn't manage to interview you because I had to go off to the other one and you were too busy running around organising it. Now, listen, what do you think now? If there's this new party, if Jeremy's in a new party, I mean, where does that leave the Greens?
Yeah.
And the left-wing Greens?
Yeah. Look, I joined or came into politics because of Jeremy Corbyn. I left and joined the Greens after he was sidelined. And the Green Party has transformed itself in the past few years. There's been a massive increase in membership, especially after 7th October. If you look at surveys, if you ask people whether capitalism is a force for good or evil, the highest proportion of people saying evil are Green Party members. If you look at voters, the highest proportion of self-proclaimed left-wingers are Green Party members. So, look, at yesterday's conference, you didn't stay for all of it, but we welcomed Faiza Shaheen, we welcomed Andrew Feinstein, we had members from Jean-Luc Mélenchon's parliamentary team there, we had the French Greens there, there was an interesting debate about alliances and working together. We are firm believers in the target being reform and labor. We do not want to get into arguments with other parties. Personally, my biggest issue is Gaza and the genocide there. That's my second, third, and fourth issues. If you want other issues, I will talk about racism and austerity. But we are willing to work with anybody who's aligned with these things. We have been waiting. I've been waiting. The left has been waiting for this new left party for 5 years, if not longer, right? And we can continue waiting for a new party with bated breath. The reality is we have a major election contest coming up in 2026. That is where London is where reform is the weakest, and this is where they have to be defeated. And we are running out of time. So I respect James and I respect Pamela, and I hope they are far advanced in their sort of party development. But this is something that we've been waiting for, and we cannot keep waiting for it. If you look at, we have a leadership election coming up in the Green Party. Zack has announced he is a very strong supporter on Gaza. He has said some important things on NATO because, frankly, the Greens had an absurd policy before, and I'm glad we'll change that. But we are also intending to push for a very strong name for the deputy leadership, and we will be a clear party for working class, left-wing people. We want a coalition around lefties, the youth, the Muslim, and the other ethnic minorities. So this is what we're trying to do. If Jeremy and others can participate and join that is fantastic, but we can't keep on waiting.
Well, I appreciate your talking so candidly about this, but would you be able to come on if this develops, this party and stuff? Would you be able to come on? I'd be happy to use this platform to bring all the different groups and parties together to unify, because I know that there were points made about, for example, the Workers' Party's LGBT policy, and then the Workers' Party's critical of the Greens for NATO and Ukraine and etc. But those are not really the central issues of what reform, the danger of reform. I mean, we've got to be able to pick, like was said earlier, say 5 principles, 5 core values that will see a unity. Do you think it's possible to unify the left?
Look, I'm a brown Muslim immigrant Pakistani. My community is in the crosshair. I think we have to unify. And I think we need to look at the French for inspiration, because they have built a far wider coalition than what we are even sort of discussing or contemplating here. And I think we have to do that, because otherwise we will have Farage as Prime Minister, and he will continue talking about sort of refugees and immigrants and dragging us to the right and blaming it all on disability claimants, etc. So we have no choice but to do this.
Right. All right. Great. Well, look, thank you for your time and thank you for waiting on the call. I know that it's you've got great parks around that you can go to out there, and they've got good ice cream vans out there as well. So I'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I know we're really late, but I'm determined to get through this conversation, and I've got a video after, so I'm going to be delirious, and I'll be definitely in need of an ice cream after this. Andrea Gilbert is on the call. How you doing, Andrea? Can you hear me? Oh.
Hello, yeah, I can hear you. How you doing, Crispin? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. So what do you think about this idea of a party with Jeremy and you know your work as a community activist? We're talking about earlier the reform kind of the way they've got so popular is because there isn't enough of us doing community activism, and people are left to put the TV on or look on social media, and they keep seeing all these things coming out from propaganda from them. Do you think that is really important that we get to the kind of community stuff that was talked about in Jeremy's leadership? We have to start again. It's like we've just been waiting for a while, haven't we, to do anything?
Well, yeah, from my point of view anyway, I think when I was doing the elections in 2019, in my opinion, all I think we managed to do was get people to vote for Labour. As soon as the elections were done, it was back to normal again, and people weren't engaging with the party, and there really wasn't much community organising going on. So then we fast forward to the pandemic, and that's when the best of our community got together and started doing food banks, community kitchens, and things like that. That's what came of it. So I feel like it's all good us having a new party and stuff, but if we haven't got much community engagement, then where is that going to leave us? It's going to leave us in the same predicament. We're talking those of us that are organised within the unions or within the communities, we will go into that movement. But people who are unorganised, frustrated, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Well, do you know what I mean? Where are they going to go?
I mean, but to get back the kind of energy that we had in not 2019 wasn't particularly good because of that Brexit thing, and it was a bit messed up. But if we look at say 2017, when everyone was nuts, just we're going out making our own things. I mean, if we could get that energy back, we could go places, because I reckon there's so many people out there. I mean, this is another thing I don't think it's really been covered in the discussion so far. Is I believe as a socialist that we are all good, innately good, that we're not bad people. Human beings are not bad. We've been messed around by the culture we're in, and I think most of us are good, and we just have to get to those people, and we can change it. I think there's also so many people who aren't voting that we can pick up. Starmer's vote's going to plummet again, isn't it? I mean, Starmer's not going to get many people coming out to vote for him.
I think within like the black community and stuff, what I'm finding interested in at the minute is there are people who are now doing TikTok videos talking about the gentrification of Caribbean areas, in particular the Northwest. So there was a video of a young man saying, that the Caribbean community have been put out of the area. And what I found interested in was that there was Reform voters within that chat encouraging him to join Reform, to fight with them, to unite, to fight to get the country back. So, there are black people who are supporting Reform as well. We've got to make that clear. It's not just white people that are doing this. We've also got Asian people that are going to Reform as well, supporting the anti-migrant rhetoric as well, saying that there's too many migrants here as well. So we can't just pull it down to white people that are doing this. There are black people that are engaging with Reform voters, following that rhetoric and also organising with them as well, going to the meetings and hearing this rhetoric, not understanding the anti-migrant link is also down to racism as well. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think we need to be fighting against as well. You know, it isn't just white people that are going into this party. It's also people that have come from you know, West Africa or the Caribbean also supporting reform as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have to work with the unorganised communities. We can't just focus on ourselves and focus on another left-wing party. We've got over 50 as it is in this country. Do you know what I mean? We need to be focusing on those who are unorganised, frustrated with Labour. We all are at the end of the day, but we need to get those people who are not politically engaged and get them involved in community stuff. That's what I believe.
Yeah, we need inspiration. We need to feel hope and inspiration. And I think it's kind of addictive. Once you get it, you'll have a bit more. Do you know what I mean? Once you've had a bit of hope, I'll take some more of that. And here's a bit of inspiration to go with that hope. And you know, we had no hope at all. I think people should remember we had no hope in 2015 when the Tories won the election. Cameron won the election, and no one thought Jeremy Corbyn would get through on the ballot paper. And it happened within a couple of months. We were all going crazy about it. So don't give up on it. And I think we've got some, and the sun's come out and stuff like that. How's it where you are for ice creams? Oh, you've gone mute now. I can't talk to you now. No, there you go. Well, what is it? What's the ice cream situation like?
The ice cream situation is good here. We got an ice cream van man that comes down. So yeah, it's a good situation up here.
All right. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I hope you get a good one.
Thank you.
And I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for staying on the call for so long.
No problem, mate. Talk soon. Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.